Hello, 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 and welcome to Nursing News You Can Use live at 5. I'm Tina Baxter, your host. I want to thank you for tuning in on this May 14th, 2025. And we do have some news to get to. But before we do, let's start with our affirmation for today from the You Are a Badass calendar by Jen Sincero. And it says, uh, what we choose to believe is true or not true dictates the boundaries we do or don't set. I'm going to say that again. What we choose to believe is true or not true dictates the boundaries we do or don't set. So my question is, what do you believe? What do you know? All right, so that's our affirmation for today. Want you to think on that. Let's start off with a couple of quick announcements. First announcement is, hey, if you're watching, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, forward this content, share it with others. Please do. We love to have more people on to see our show. If you have any announcements for local events that are happening that you want us to promote, let me know. I'll be happy to give a shout out to local events here in Anderson and around Madison County in Indiana. Because I love to share the community events out there that what's happening. This is a community show, but it's also a global show because we carry news from around the world. And so, with that being said, let's get into our first news article for today. This is coming from McKnight's Long Term Care News. I find this one interesting. It says House Committee proposes 10-year delay to nursing home staffing mandate. A congressional committee has proposed delaying further implementation of the nursing home staffing mandate for 10 years as a part of a major budget reconciliation bill. That provision of the bill, which introduced Sunday night, would represent a big win for nursing home providers because that gives them more time to look for staff supposedly and make the necessary changes. But we'll see. It's not like they didn't know that this was coming. They've known this was coming, by the way. But anyway, let's go on. So it says the package also would halt states from enacting more provider taxes, a potential setback for skilled care operators and the states that benefit from the enhanced federal matching funds they produce. Providers, however, have feared the elimination or drastic shrinking of provider taxes, signifying that at least on one level, Sunday night's proposal may represent a potential muted victory in certain circles. Republicans will reverse nonsensical government rules that undermine access to care, such as a one-size-fits-all nursing home minimum staffing rule that threatens to close down thousands of nursing home facilities, foreshadowed Brett Guthrie, Republican from Kentucky, the chairman of the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, in a Wall Street Journal column early Sunday. Leading long-term care provider associations told McKnight's Long-Term Care News Monday that they continue to study the hundreds of newly released pages in the proposal, but they are appreciative of the attention given to vital topics. Michael Bassett, Senior Vice President of Government Relations for the American Healthcare Association, says, we are still combing through the details of this first round of legislation and are assessing how it may impact our long-term care sector. We're grateful that the chairman, Guthrie, recognizes that impracticality and overreaching nature of the staffing mandate, and we urge Congress to protect access to care, repeal these reckless regulations once and for all. Okay, can I just stop here because I know that a lot of times, budget constraints, the fact that most of our nursing home residents are on Medicaid, which notoriously are really poor payers. I mean, Medicaid just pays the bare minimum, okay, of everything. But I also know that you're supposed to be in the business of taking care of people. And if you keep cutting and keep cutting and keep cutting the very staff that's supposed to be there to take care of the people, what are you doing except essentially just warehousing people? And then it becomes an ethical conundrum then for those workers who are there who want to take care of their residents, but they're so understaffed that they can't feasibly do it. And so there has to be some sort of solution to this. We have to be um, foresighted, and and look at this from a very practical situation. You have sicker people coming into long-term care and in nursing homes. Who's going to take care of them? And then you wonder why you have people that are afraid to work in nursing homes because they're afraid that their license may be in jeopardy if they're the only nurse on duty for 40, 50, 60 pet residents, and something happens. Now their license may be in jeopardy. And not only that, but now you face the possibility of criminal prosecution. So it really becomes an issue. And I think waiting 10 years to solve this problem is only going to make things worse. And I'm very concerned about our government's lack of efficiency in this area. And I wonder what would happen if we looked at how Congress is working and how inefficient Congress is. If maybe we should start asking our congressmen as voters, defend your job and tell us what you did today. Just a thought. And again, I'm not talking about any particular political party. But what I'm saying is that we need to hold our representatives accountable for the things that they do and do not do. But let's go on. It says the bill charges the Department of Health and Human Services with delaying until January 1st of 2035 implementation, administration, or enforcement of the Medicare and Medicaid programs, minimum staffing standards for long-term care facilities, and Medicaid institutional payment transparency reporting final rule. Parts of the minimum staffing rule have already been instituted, but the most fearsome elements, including having registered nurse on duty 24/7 every day of the year and minimum coverage hours for direct nursing personnel, aren't set to go into effect until next year. Now, it didn't even say that you have to have multiple registered nurses, just one registered nurse every day. And that just makes me wonder how our profession has continued. We just ended Nurses Week, have been devalued. And so, yeah, you can read more about this. I don't want to get more into this because, it makes my blood boil. But I think waiting 10 years and just kicking it down the road is a mistake. Are you waiting for the next pandemic, the next crisis to happen before you decide, oh, well, we need to do something about this so you can study it again and again and again and never make change? I'm saying let's really hold their feet to the fire. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. All right. So let's get to this next story. I thought this is kind of interesting. This is coming from McKnight's Long-Term Care News again. It says, bankruptcy, no reason to give 2 nursing homes pass on up to $2.7 million in restitution. Okay. The December 2023 guilty verdict followed a 5-week complex trial that included testimony from key federal regulatory officials, including Evan Schulman, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Director for the Division of Nursing Homes. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Pennsylvania also prosecuted 5 company and 5 facility leaders for their roles in a scheme that led to overbilling. The jury found all 5 not guilty. That leaves fines and restitution against the operators that are only possible remediation for a scheme that lasted at least a year and a half. Prosecutors had alleged that 2 different schemes to enrich nursing home operations. In the first, leaders were accused of falsifying payroll documents to make it appear the nursing homes were meeting required staffing levels, including having non-working direct care staff clock in for shifts they never intended to work. And this makes me wonder. So it's like saying you maybe have the administrator that might have a CNA license clock in. I don't know how this worked out, but I'm just curious how this worked. And it says, in the second, administrators were accused of changing assessments to make it appear patients were clinically depressed or needed more therapy as a means of delaying discharge and driving Medicare or Medicaid reimbursements. Since being convicted, Comprehensive Health Care Management Services and the two nursing homes have continued their legal battle. In June, the court denied a motion for acquittal and a new trial. In their pre sentencing memorandum, they also said they plan to appeal the jury verdict. For now, however, their attorneys are trying to avoid more financial fallout from the case. As to both fines and restitution, one of the defendants here is already bankrupt and the other soon will be, so neither has any ability to pay, they wrote. And as to restitution, the decision is even easier. The government has never been able to show that it suffered any pecuniary loss in this case, except by speculative leaps that lack any basis in fact and contradict the testimony of its own witnesses at trial. They argued that the government wasn't harmed by inaccurate staffing records because the patients would have received Medicare and Medicaid coverage at another facility had they not been cared for at Brighton or Mount Lebanon. The government's stance is that had the improper staffing levels had not been obscured, the facility would have been subject to repeated admission pauses and missed out on significant federal funding until it returned to compliance. They based their restitution calculations on the survey dates and corresponding 30-day resident admission bans, supported by the trial testimony from both CMS and state health department officials. So there's more to this story. Head on over and check it out. But it's kind of interesting to see how these things are played out in the legal sphere and what's happening. So we'll keep an eye on that story as well. This is from Yahoo News, and I'm pretty sure you've heard about what's coming up next after this story, but I find it interesting. I was looking at Yahoo Finance, and it says, healthcare worst performing S&P 500 subsector year to date, Mizuho expert. I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, sir or ma'am. It says the healthcare sector is not doing so well. Mm-hmm. It's been a key target of the Trump administration since the start of the year, and the headwinds keep coming. Most recently, an effort to reduce drug prices in the U.S. to match international pricing has frustrated big pharma executives who have been attempting to curry favor with the administration by committing billions of dollars in supply chain investments in the U.S. The move also puts pressure on the pharmacy benefits managers, or PBMs as they're called, which Trump called the middleman, which they kind of are, and accused of profiting from drugs that they have no role in making. That's on top of tariffs that have been impacting the medical technology sector and the threat of 25% tariffs on other pharmaceuticals. There have also been questions around the sector and its regulation as a defensive or safe play amid market volatility. Current indicators are signaling that the reputation they once enjoyed may no longer be the case. To that end, the S&P 500 healthcare subsector is now the worst performing of the S&P year to date. The S&P healthcare index is now at negative 5.6% year to date versus the flat SPX. As usual, both pharma and managed care to perform well to give healthcare a good shot of keeping pace with broader markets. So two of the top stocks in the index are Eli Lilly, which is one of the reasons why I decided to bring this story forward. Eli Lilly's right here in good old Indiana, and United Health Group, two mega cap stocks that have recently been pummeled. This is their words, not mine. United Healthcare lost 18% in trading yesterday due to the CEO shakeup and pulling of its 2025 guidance, and we'll get to that story in a moment. While Lilly lost 12% last week after its competitor Novo Nordisk sealed an exclusive formulary deal with one of its largest PBMs. Holtz emphasized that the pressure on the industry is a combination of factors. The complexities and challenges facing healthcare remain as pointed as we can ever recall. It's not one thing in particular. It's a little bit of everything. Given constant government-related intervention or pressure, we do not believe healthcare is at all defensive and rather emblematic of difficult-to-monitor risk factors requiring a great deal of patience. Trust Juliandra Singh recently echoed that statement. Everything is slowed down. The macro environment looks pretty uncertain. So we can see, if you can want to hear more about that, head on over to Yahoo Finance. I found that interesting. Healthcare stocks are down across the board, the S&P 500. And that leads us to our next story because I thought that this was interesting that this came out recently. This is from Skilled Nursing News, and it says leadership shakeup for United Health and Nursing Home ISMP partner Optum after controversial 2024. Leadership changes with insurance giant United Health Group and its subsidiary Optum have rattled the company from inside out, with UHG CEO Andrew Whitty abruptly resigning on Tuesday, replaced with Chairman Stephen Hemsley. One moment, please, and we'll go ahead and take a break, and I'll get back to this. Tired of feeling trapped in a job that no longer fulfills you? Is your nursing job no longer the fun-filled adventure you imagined? Find your passion again through nurse entrepreneurship. Step out into the light and come feel the sun. Join the Nurse Shark Academy today at thenurssharkacademy.biz and come feel the sun. Okay, welcome back. I apologize. Sorry for the interruption. There's a family drama, as you know, this happens now and then. And let's get back into the article, talking about the leadership shakeup for United Healthcare. All right, so it says Whitty resigned amid surging medical costs and shares plummeting by more than 15%. This is what we just talked about, reaching a 4-year low, according to reports from Reuters and other outlets. United Healthcare also suspended its annual forecast as well. Coupled with these issues was a lawsuit against United Healthcare in February over its wrongful denials of post-acute care and Medicare Advantage plans, including nursing home services. United Health's use of AI tool NH Predict led to arbitrary coverage denials without consideration of the patient's health status or the involvement of a physician, according to the lawsuit. With the latest court ruling, Medicare Advantage enrollees and their families can now seek documents for United Healthcare, especially if they pertain to the use of AI tools. The recent headwinds within the large traditional Medicare Advantage market has been well documented and has impacted the organization's involvement in the ISNP and IESNP market, said Hank Watson, Chief Development Officer for American Health Plans, a competitor of Optum's, which offers provider-owned ISNPs. United Healthcare in 2024 was also dealing with the aftermath of a cyber attack as part of its tech unit and backlash from the unaliving of its insurance unit head, Brian Thompson, in December. Luigi Mangione, the 27-year-old suspect in the death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, has family connections to the skilled nursing and senior living sector. Mangione's grandfather, Nick Mangione Sr., founded Lauren Health Services. Upon assuming leadership, Hensley expressed gratification for Whitty's leadership, especially during some of the most challenging times any company has ever faced. The board and I have greatly valued his leadership and compassion as chief executive and as director and wish him and his family the best. So that brings us then to this other article here. And it says, this is from Reuters. United Healthcare CEO leaves abruptly, company pulls forecast as shares shrink. United Health Group says its chief executive officer, Andrew Whitty, resigned as of Tuesday, and the company suspended its annual forecast due to surging medical costs, sending shares plummeting nearly 18% in a 4-year low. There we go. Chairman Stephen Hemsley, 72, who was CEO before stepping down in 2017, will assume the CEO title once again. Whitty chose to leave for personal reasons, the company said, without elaborating. His exit comes only a few weeks after United Health cut its annual forecast and reported its first earnings miss since 2008 financial crisis, marking a major setback under Whitty's leadership. Many of the issues standing in the way of achieving our goals, as well as our opportunities, are largely within our control, Hemsley said on a call with investors. United Health Group has grappled with several major challenges over the last 12 months, including a cyber attack at its tech unit that affected some 190 million people, a report of an investigation into its Medicare billing practices, and an unexpected surge in medical costs that hurt its bottom line. The company was also catapulted into public consciousness in December when Brian Thompson, the CEO of its insurance unit, was killed in New York, live in New York, just before its investor conference. Kevin Gade, chief operating officer at the United Health investor, Ba and Gaynor, said the abruptness of Whitty's exit certainly isn't a surprise, but noted that United Health had faced unique struggles in recent months. We're not likely to hear more on Andrew's departure, but it's fair to suggest that the recent of his co-worker and the constant fear of his family's and his safety and the insurers were also hurt after United Health's financial hit prompted concerns that high costs would spill over to other companies, but those shares have rebounded. So again, there's some major shakeups that are happening in United Healthcare. We'll see what's going on. And so you see what's happening in healthcare. And so kind of talking about financial stuff today is kind of what we're focusing on. But we're about to make a shift in the conversation and get to our next story as we end and wrap up Nurses Week. Let's talk about this. And this is from, again, another article with McKnight's, and it says, survey reveals dramatic shift in nurses' work and well-being. According to a survey, it says that we can no longer use COVID-19 as an excuse as to why nurses are leaving the workforce. A marked reentry of experienced nurses in the workforce has occurred in past pandemic era, which has helped stabilize the workforce. With the reentry of older nurses, the median age of the workforce is now 50. Wait, sorry, that just struck me. I was like, older? Okay. All right. I that's just put me in that class. I was like, wait a minute. The authors noted, however, that this trend could be short-lived as many baby boomers born between 1946 and 1964, that is not me, will be retiring in the next few years as they reach retirement age. But I do have coworkers that are retiring. And they have reached that age. And that's kind of scary when you think about that. It says while workloads have decreased by 20 to 25% since 2022, staffing shortages, burnout, and high intent to leave rates remain critical challenges that threaten long-term stability. Pay rates have increased over the past 5 years. According to the research, median pre-tax earnings for RNs and LPNs and LVNs have increased by 10% to 16%, likely driven by inflation and rising demand for healthcare services. According to the highlights of the report, the nursing profession began to rebound in 2022. In 2024, 87.7% of RN licensees and 70.6% of LPN, LVN licensees were actively working in the profession. Additionally, educational levels among nurses have increased to the highest level ever documented. Nearly 3/4 or 73% of RNs hold a baccalaureate degree or higher. The nursing workforce also is becoming more racially diverse. The percentage of Latino Hispanic registered nurses has doubled since 2015, increasing to 7.2% from 3.6%. So we'll see what's continuing to happen. We'll keep an eye on that as things shift in healthcare as they always do. This is another story that I just found interesting. I wanted to share this with you. This is coming out of Pennsylvania. And it says, this is from the Watchdog, and it says, state surveyors pay surprise visit to Mission to investigate nurses' complaints about staffing and patient deaths. Oh, excuse me, North Carolina. Sorry, not Pennsylvania, North Carolina. A North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services representative at Mission Hospital conducting an unannounced investigation of nurse complaints on behalf of the top of federal health agency in the nation. A spokesperson said Wednesday that employees from the Department of Division Health and Service Regulation will be there for an undetermined amount of time. On Tuesday, May 13th, that was just yesterday, surveyors arrived and entered Mission Hospital to conduct an unannounced survey. The survey team will remain on site until the survey is complete. The survey's work at Mission Hospital is performed on behalf of the U.S. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, DHSR, and CMS continue to work closely together with respect to this work. Mission Hospital spokesperson Nancy Lindell did not immediately respond to the watchdog for comment. Mission nurses said they received calls this week from surveyors confirming DHSR was looking into complaints they filed recently. Some of these complaints address staffing issues in various departments, including the intensive care unit and allegedly avoidable patient deaths. It is unclear whether anyone filed a complaint about the February death of an emergency department patient. The man died in the bathroom after his call for assistance went unanswered for several minutes. It says, I started hearing from coworkers yesterday that surveyors were in-house at Carrie Wilson, a cardiology nurse and member of the Nurses Union Professionals Practice Committee. I got a courtesy call from a staff member at DHHS to let me know that there are in fact surveyors in-house admission investigating complaints that I had filed. Wilson said she spoke to two other nurses who received courtesy calls from DHSR. At least one was interviewed by the agency, she said. Wilson said she filed one complaint regarding the issues at New South Asheville Emergency Department. She would not provide further detail about the complaints, but said they mainly focused on staffing issues at locations throughout the Mission Health system. We see the dangerous staffing every day. When nurses are taking care of more patients than they should, they are undoubtedly going to miss those very subtle changes that could mean truly life or death for those patients. Nurses file complaints when they feel that there is not enough support from the hospital, Wilson said, adding that when administration won't listen to us who are screaming from the bedside, we go to regulatory agencies that can help hold them accountable. So we'll see what's going on. It says that in November and December of 2023, a surveyor visited Mission and found that 18 people had been harmed over 2 years, including 4 who died because of deficiencies in the care in the emergency and oncology departments. CMS placed the hospital in immediate jeopardy, the most severe sanction a medical facility can face. After the hospital issued a plan of correction, the federal government lifted the immediate jeopardy in early 2024. So just to keep an eye on that situation, and just to say, nurses, keep advocating. And I applaud those nurses who are being brave enough to do that and advocate for their patients in that way. All right. So another quick story about nurses advocating. This is coming out of the great state of Ohio from WOUB Public Media. From Dayton, Ohio, and it says nurses want Ohio lawmakers to provide a remedy to staffing shortages and violent workplaces. Nurses are calling for a code red alarm for Ohio and gathered at the State House Thursday, this is last week, to urge lawmakers to pass legislation to improve nursing care for patients and to protect those who provide that care. Nurses chanted, "We are one," as they rallied in Capitol Square as they call for legislation to improve nursing care in Ohio. The nurses said critically short staffing, care units, and workplace violence are causing some consider leaving the profession. They want lawmakers to pass legislation to improve conditions for workers and patients. And so I have to tell you this because I just thought this was brilliant and funny. So I'm going to actually show you this. I'm going to show you this picture because I just thought this is really funny. Let me share the screen real quick because when I read this is one of the reasons why I had to get to this story, because when I read this, it just made me laugh. But if you can see it here, okay, this is a sign that one of the nurses is holding up. My neck, my back, fix our staffing. This is whack. And that made me laugh. And then another nurse held up a sign that says, Stop telling us to cope, staff up for safe care, more nurses, less millionaire execs. So these are the signs that the nurses are holding as they rally outside of the State House. This was actually last Thursday on May 8th when this happened. And it just made me laugh when it says my neck, my back fix our staffing. This is whack. I just thought that was the funniest thing, the funniest slogan. But I wanted to share that with you, just to probably a little bit of levity for a very grave situation that's happening right now. And so, according to this, it says everyday nurses are pushed to their limits, overworked, and placed in hazardous situations that put everyone at risk, said Rick Lucas, president and executive director of the Ohio Nurses Association. We are fed up with these intolerable conditions and are calling for immediate action to protect those who dedicate their lives to caring for others. The future of healthcare in Ohio depends on immediate action taken by our legislators and hospital executives. Someone's safety and care depend on it. A bill that dealt with nursing ratios didn't make it through the last General Assembly, but this year the ONA said it will reintroduce a similar piece of legislation that supports nurses and health professionals and prioritize patient safety. So unfortunately, that bill didn't make it through, but I'm glad to see the nurses are stepping up and making their voices known. And again, there's more strikes that are going on across the country. I don't have time to cover all of them, but just let you know that nurses are speaking up, and this is a great way for us to advocate for our profession and for our patients and their safety. Okay, so this brings us to this our international story for today, coming from Canada. This is from CBC News. Yes, and it says BC fast tracks process for U.S. nurses to get registered in the province. The province is making it easier and faster for nurses from the U.S. to get registered in BC in an effort to bring more healthcare workers north. During a news conference on Monday, Premier David Eby said uncertainty related to U.S. President Donald Trump and his administration creates an opportunity for the province to recruit much-needed doctors and nurses. Eby said American health workers thinking about coming to BC will be valued, respected, and will have the opportunity to care for the people based on what they need, not on their earnings. You'll be part of building healthy communities in the best place on earth, and you are very welcome here, he said. President Trump's loss is British Columbia's gain. American nurses can apply to the BC College of Nurses and Midwives without first going through a third-party assessment organization. The province says collaboration with counterparts from the U.S. Means the BC College can now access a database to review the education, exam results, employment, and registration history of nurses who apply. Since launching its new process for U.S. nurses in early April, 177 people have applied to work in BC, and 113 have received their registrations to practice. The province said applications for U.S. trained nurses are up 127%. For Rachel Smith Taylor, a nurse from Belton, Texas, the opportunity in BC is personally significant. I'm a wife in a same-sex marriage needing to get out of a red state, she said in an interview with CBC News. She and her wife, Lisa, also a nurse, live in Texas with their 3 children. Smith Taylor said the re-election of Donald Trump made them start to seriously consider leaving the U.S., concerned about their family's safety. We needed to get out of the red state or that thought process anyway to feel safe and move forward, she said. Last month, they visited Nanaimo after seeing a viral TikTok video by Canadian marketing professional Todd Maffin encouraging Americans to check out the city. The warm welcome they received left an impression. The experience reinforced my aspiration to contribute to Canada's healthcare system, she said. They toured Nanaimo Regional General Hospital and learned more about the province's effort to fast-track the process for American nurses and doctors to work there. I have to say, if you are on a visa working here in the U.S. and you're from another country and they're welcoming you, I probably would think twice. I probably would think twice in this current administration about leaving. I'll be honest with you. I probably would. If you're on a visa and you have an opportunity to go work in the UK or Canada, I would probably think about that seriously. I really would. because why take the risk? Why take the risk? And so for those that are not citizens, I would think that may be a valid point, because it does give me pause and concern when I heard of a doctor that was working and was not able to return to work because of crazy policies that are going on right now. So that gives me pause, and I because we when this was first announced, I did cover this story, but it makes me think about this. I said, nurses gotten used to doing travel gigs and everything else. Would you consider traveling to another country to work? Let me know what you think. So it's now they're thinking of making it permanent. It seems a lot less daunting to know that they are so willing and have the capabilities to help us for those who want to leave and get out of this political unrest, she said. She says she is pursuing registration as a nurse in BC, but doesn't have a timeline as to when she might begin practicing. Healthcare workers from outside Canada still require work permits to be employed in the province, and those are capped each year per province under federal immigration quotas. Smith Taylor says she understands it's not going to be a quick transition. I'm on step 4 of 502, she said, describing her early stages of immigration process, adding that she does feel encouraged knowing that a team from Health Match BC, a provincially funded recruitment service, is available to help her and her wife through both immigration and hiring steps. Meanwhile, EB is pointing to the active lifestyle variety of communities and employment settings available for those considering coming north to work in healthcare. Faced with repeated questions from reporters asking whether BC can match nurse salaries in the U.S., he did not answer. Health Minister Josie Osborne did jump in to say physician salaries in BC are quite comparable to those in the U.S. Okay, that's doctors. What about nurses? That's the question on everybody's mind. Okay. The province has also launched a targeted U.S. marketing campaign in June in parts of the country where the highest interest in moving to BC, including Washington and Oregon states and select cities in California. So we'll see what happens, but I'm just curious, nurses, if you're thinking of making that change, would you consider Canada as a possible option? I don't know. All right, and here is our last story. This is one of our stories of nurses making a difference. And this is a brand new nurse making a difference, and he's making a difference by being who he is. And this is the reason why I share this, is because I'm excited when I hear about change happening in the nursing profession. And this is from Prairie View A&M University and Senior Willie Harrison. And congratulations, by the way, to all the nursing students that are graduating right now. I'm very excited. Welcome to the tribe. Thanks for coming in. Congratulations. But I want to share this. PV grad takes pride joining small but growing workforce of Black male nurses. Prairie View A&M University senior Willie Harrison Burnett III is the first in his family to attend a historically Black college or university and go into healthcare. And he will join a very select group of Black male nurses nationwide once he graduates this May. Exciting. It says that journey has meant breaking barriers and creating a path that didn't exist before me, and PVAMU gave me the foundation and support to do just that. My journey hasn't been easy, but every challenge has fueled my drive to succeed and be a role model for others. Representation matters, Burnett says, and knowing he will soon join the small but growing number of Black male nurses in the U.S. is a source of pride and affirmation for him. He says, I chose Prairie View A&M University College of Nursing because of its strong reputation for producing skilled, compassionate nurses and its deep legacy of service, leadership, and cultural pride. I come from a family that has experienced a lot of chronic illness, such as cancer, and witnessing that growing up inspired me to pursue nursing, and now I'm proud to be the first person in my family to enter the medical field. He said that choosing nursing was a natural progression of turning his personal experience into professional purpose. So it says, from men achieving leadership excellence are male, and brothers leading and cultivating knowledge are Black, to the PVAMU honors program, Burnett has already stored up extensive professional and leadership experience, including internships at UT Southwestern Medical Center and at Houston Methodist Hospital. The support I've received from faculty, the strong clinical experiences, and the friendships I've built have shaped me into a nurse who's confident, compassionate, and ready to lead. Being a male nursing student comes with its challenges, but I've used my experience to break down barriers and advocate for more diversity in healthcare. Those around PVAMU who know him call him charismatic and a gentleman. So I'm very glad to highlight him as one of our nurses making a difference. What a great way to end Nurses Week. Thank you for joining the ranks. Looking forward to the care that you will provide. And I'm going to have a quick break, and then we're going to get on to our announcements. Ready to turn your nursing skills into a thriving business? At the Nurse Shark Academy, we give you expert strategies, real startup guidance, and the support to go from employee to empowered entrepreneur. Join us and build the nurse-owned business of your dreams. Start today and join us at the nursesharkacademy.biz. All right, a couple of quick announcements. So we have coming up, let's see here. On the 21st, we have our basic life support CPR class. So if you need to get your CPR and you haven't had a CPR training before, this class is for healthcare professionals. Sign up for that. Go to Baxter Professional Services Health Education.com. And then also on the 21st, we have our basic TB validation class as well. That begins at 3 o'clock. So if you need to register, Baxter Professional Services Health Education.com. And then we have our home health aid CNA class information session, which will be also on May the 21st at 4 o'clock. You can register for that information as well. And don't forget to come back for our show. We have a great show the next week at 5. And then, let's see. And then coming up for the rest of the month, we have our TB instructor course. So if you have had your TB, basic TB validation for 6 months, you are a healthcare professional or someone with a 4-year healthcare related degree, you are eligible to take our TB instructor course, and you can register for that course at Baxter Professional Services Health Education.com. All right. Those are all the announcements. As we have more announcements come up, just don't forget to check us out at the Nurse Shark Academy at the nursesharkacademy.biz for the things that we're doing over there. If you want to start your nurse-owned business or healthcare-related business, look us up because we want to help you get those good foundations under to get you started. And then also don't forget to subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube and hit the notification bell so you're notified every time we go live at 5, and watch our other show, the Nurse Shark Academy Show, where we interview and highlight nurse business owners and leaders. Those of you that are watching us on Facebook, please leave us a like and a comment. Share this content with your other friends and highlight us. We appreciate you being here. Again, if you have a local announcement, please go ahead and submit them to me. I'd love to be able to share that. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening. And then if you want to share and start streaming and use our StreamYard, which is where I'm using to stream to this platform, I'm going to put in the comment, I do have a referral link that you get a $10 discount if you want to sign up using that. If you want to start a podcast, this is a great way to get started with your podcast. You can do that now. So I'm going to go ahead and share that with you. All right, that's the end of our show. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye-bye.